Years of service, Harvey Schlesinger, 44 years as of April 17th. That's great. Wedding anniversaries, Dean, thank you already for bringing Lori here. And Richard Miller has an anniversary on April 12th. A couple of things, a reminder on your tables is a committee preference form for next year. I know Lisa Marie would really like to get a better understanding. If you didn't sign up last week, try to fill those out for her. So
Leslie.
Leslie, I'm sorry. I'm jumping at you. Leslie would really appreciate it so she could get the committees assigned. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking ahead. One other thing is we have a thank you message from Joan Trout. Dear Rotary members, thank you so much for your card, especially the note you wrote that you will keep the family in prayers in your hearts. Tom and I were married for 66 years, always happy. Tom was a wonderful man. Thank you again for your prayers, Joan Trout. So, all right. So, let's see here. Okay, I'm going to quit trying. I can't even work an iPhone anymore. Is anything happening on our Southjax Derby party?
I think there is. Thank you, President Charlie. Coming up to the podium with all my accoutrements, including my iron fist.
Yeah.
Wrong list. Thank you to everyone for your donations of wine and bourbon. We are collecting quite the selection for our wine and bourbon pull. So at the Derby event, if you have never participated, we will, in one of these pulls before, we will have 2 tables designated. One will have bottles of wine, one will have bottles of bourbon. You will pay a fee to get to pull a bottle of choice. And so there's some significant contributions that have already been made in both the wine and the bourbon. So pretty excited, and I promise all of them will make it to the event and not my bar. I also wanted to share that we sent out, while the invitations, and Ed, thank you for displaying the invitation up there. We've sent it out to our membership as well as the district electronically. We have also printed some beautiful invitations thanks to, is it Rowd or Rowdy? Rowdy, thank you. Has done a really great job of actually printing the invitations. So we have mailed 100 invitations to past speakers of the club and individuals that we felt might be interested in Rotary. So we have mailed those, but we also received some extra invitations. So if you have somebody that you think would like to join Rotary or participate, or a friend that you know you just like having a good time with to come to the event, I have some of these actual printed invitations. I also have envelopes if you would like to personally give an invitation to somebody. I ask that if you take them, that you please make sure they get into the hands of somebody who may actually be interested in Rotary and or purchase tickets. So they're beautiful. So if nothing else, just take a look at them. There's one on the membership desk where Pat is sitting right now. So I have those. Please come see me, and I'm happy to provide those to you. Last but not least, last week we mentioned that we opened up our sponsorship opportunities to the membership. Today is the last day that you have full access to these sponsorship opportunities. We are going out to the public this week with these sponsorship opportunities. Some of the fun ones that I think for us as members are the VIP tables. We've got different levels of VIP tables. If you want to invite a group that you want to ensure that you actually get to sit at a table with and get served dinner versus the general public, which we will have buffet style and things of that nature. So take a look at the sponsorship opportunities. We'll send it out again this week so that everybody has it, probably include it in the gear. But we are opening that up to the public and other companies this week. So I think that's everything with the Derby. Any questions about the upcoming Derby event? All right. Well, thank you all so much and appreciate it. Thank you, President Charlie.
Thank you, Lisa Marie, and also thank all of your committee members. I know how much work y'all are putting into this. I'm looking forward to it. All right. I think it's time for us to learn a little bit more about Paul O'Hara's building the trainer.
What I have to do is go away for a week, everybody forgets about me.
Never.
Thank you. This morning, I was gonna tell President Charlie, I spent an hour on the phone with the Sirius XM streaming service. I could not get it to work for 1 hour. For one who has a heavy accent, and I can understand about every other word, so I understand completely about the icons. They're Satan. So last week, Harlan read to you a little bit about World War I was starting. We reached that point in Rotary history. This is a really interesting chapter in that today. As the United States was being slowly drawn into the European conflict, many Rotarians were looking for ways to help prepare America for war. After the U.S. entered the war in March of 1917, Albert Briggs, an advertising executive and a Chicago Rotarian, developed an organization to ferret out and stop German sympathizers in the infiltration of American industry. He felt the public was being constantly told lies by German agents, and the American way of life was being threatened. After getting the support of the Chicago Club and they called it IARC board back then, now it's Rotary International, he arranged a meeting with President Woodrow Wilson. So he was moving right up. After listening to Briggs, the president sanctioned the concept of private citizens working with the federal law enforcement agencies who were thought to be overworked at this time. After receiving authorization from the U.S. Attorney General, Briggs sent a wire to Ches Perry, who we talked about before, who held a second meeting with a dozen Rotarians and a Department of Justice representative. With a unanimous vote, the American Protective League came into existence. By midnight, telegraphs were sent to Rotary clubs in the largest cities across the country. Within 36 hours, more than 200 chapters of the private APL were in operation. Not surprisingly, many of the new leaders of the League's national division were Rotarian businessmen like Briggs himself. The advertising executive told these men to form hierarchical Secret Service divisions with positions including chiefs, captains, lieutenants, and squad operatives. Their sworn duty was to report any disloyalty, industrial disturbance, or other matters likely to injure or embarrass the government of the United States. The American Protective League was a genuine secret society replete with its own oaths and rituals. The original intent of the APL was to assist the understaffed DOJ, but as the League grew, Washington lost control of what the individual chapters were doing. What a shock. Vigilante actions frequently took place. As the war dragged on, League activities expanded to include examinations of enemy aliens, draft dodgers, food hoarding. You've got 2 oatmeals in your cabinet. You must be a food hoarder. Disloyal utterances, unions and their leaders, strikes, and radicals. Officials of the APL were charged with illegally detaining people. I can't imagine how anything would go wrong with this. Almost 10% of the APL's actions focused on destroying the IWW. For those of you who don't know who that is the American Communist Party, International Workers of the World. And I went to their website. They describe themselves as a union based on the principles of Marxist conflict and the indigenous American philosophy of industrial unionism. It should be noted that in 1919, at a mass trial in Chicago, 101 IWW leaders were sentenced to federal prison terms for conspiring to obstruct the war effort. They were very unpopular. APL abuses were starting to be made public when the war ended and the League disbanded. It's important to note that the APL was not a Rotary program. You know, I skipped a paragraph here, which I think is kind of important, that they moved the headquarters to Washington, where this advertising executive commanded over 100,000 people. And at its height, the American Protective League claimed 250,000 dues-paying members in over 600 cities. A large number of members did come from Rotary ranks. Almost 3/4 of the cases investigated by the APL came from the Chicago area. But one should not judge Rotary by their involvement with APL. Rotary's huge service contributions during the First World War, aside from the formation of the APL, was the single greatest event that transformed clubs from the business exchange concept to the humanitarian assistance ideals. Clubs turned to community projects like youth camps, swimming pools, playgrounds, and other enterprises. They organized countless bond and pep rallies supporting the troops. Thousands of small and large acts of kindness occurred, much to the delight of Paul Harris. Shortly after the war, Paul wrote encouragingly, "I have never as yet set an ideal too high for Rotary to ascend to." I love that. Most of the ascensions have already been made and others are being made. I hope that the time may come when the principle that service bears its own reward will be generally accepted. Perhaps it was time for him to rejoin the movement, and that's the next chapter.
Thank you, Bill. As all of you may know, this year the club intends on submitting a district grant to benefit Daniel. One of the aspects of any grant application is for the club to disclose any potential conflicts of interest. Conflicts are not necessarily disqualifying, but we do have to present that as part of our grant application. So if you're a member of the board of Daniel or have some significant involvement, in other words, family members, an employee or whatever, please let me know. You don't need to let me know today. I'm going to send out a general email to everyone. Just ask for any affirmative responses so we can complete that part of the application. All right, at this time, let me recognize our Sergeant at Arms, Lisa Marie Winslow, to introduce our speaker, who I think is now a co-host in case she needs to.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, it is my honor to introduce to you today, virtually, we have Dr. Lori Slifka, who is here to talk to us about ChatGPT. And if you haven't heard about ChatGPT, after today, I encourage you to make sure that you do some research on these learning intelligence forms applications. Dr. Slifka was really instrumental in presenting this to the university faculty probably about 2 months ago. And I got to participate in one of the sessions that she offered to our faculty university-wide and was just fascinated. I learned so much, and the information that she presented was so basic, and she hopefully will be sharing that example that she shared with us as well. And I can't thank her enough for making time in her busy schedule to be here today, virtually, of course, to present. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lori Slifka of our graduate school of Kaiser University. Dr. Slifka?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa Marie, and thank you for having me here. I wish I was not virtual. I wish I was there because I actually live in Chicago. So I would very much rather be in Florida, but nonetheless, I'm glad to be here. So thank you so much for the warm introduction. I am going to quickly try to share my screen, and I'm going to be going back and forth from a few things, so just be patient with me as I navigate this.
We can see it.
Great. I am going to make it bigger. There we go.
Awesome.
All right, we're off to a good start. So we are going to be talking about ChatGPT and other generative AI today, which is all of the talk. If you watch the news or look to the internet, ChatGPT is all around us. I'm an educator, so the focus of this talk is really going to be on education, but we have to think of it from this perspective because individuals that are coming into the business world and whatnot are coming out of higher education. And so the implications, worldwide on all different sectors are huge. And really, you know, what I'm focused on here is how we're going to navigate this in higher ed. So a little bit of background, not to spend too much time on it. My name is Dr. Lori Slifka. I'm actually a neuroscientist by trade, but I switched gears, got really, really involved with teaching. And then I fell in love with it when I started teaching, and then got really involved in essentially the science behind teaching and learning, and transitioned my role. I'm a professor of psychology, and I'm also the chair of teaching and learning for the graduate school at Kaiser University. I became interested in the impact of AI years ago, and how it can affect cheating. There were these very bad generative AI tools out there that we were seeing, and they were popping up on my YouTube, you know, because I'm an educator, like how to have a paper written for you. And at the time I was sharing it with the group, and I was like, hey, this is out there, but it's terrible. So like, let's keep an eye on it, but I don't think it's going to have, you know, a great impact on our students and whatnot. And then November 2022 came around, and ChatGPT was introduced, and we're here. It is so much better than anything we've seen before. And so now we really need to focus on how this is going to impact everything. And I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. I'm just diving in and getting started and trying to educate on what we know. And from the time I did this talk the first time, things have changed rapidly. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I know I'm focused on higher education. I know many of you are not in higher education, but I hope that this translates to, you know, your line of work, and also thinking about the graduates that are coming into your line of work out of higher education, being in this new era. So we're going to start with a quick introduction to ChatGPT. I have a video for you that was discussed at the beginning. Hopefully it shows up because it's pretty cool. We're going to talk about implications in higher education. I'm going to just share some discussion questions that I pose to my faculty, just for you to think about how you're going to be thinking about this in your workplace, just some examples. And then we'll have time for some questions. So as an introduction to ChatGPT, trying not to, many of you may be more involved with tech than I am. I am not, you know, I had to do coding in graduate school when I was doing neuroimaging analysis, and that was enough for me. But trying to put this, you know, for the broader audience, ChatGPT and other generative AI essentially is a large language model, or large language models. ChatGPT was developed by OpenAI, and I know in the email that you had sent out, it told there was a little bit of background on OpenAI. But essentially, a large language model takes a lot of information from various sources, kind of like our brain, and then it can essentially read all of the material and then spit it back out. So it can take all the information, integrate it, and spit it back out. So it's trained. It's not going into the internet and looking things up like Google. It's taking the information that it has been given. The main purpose of these generative AIs are to converse with humans in a natural conversational way, providing helpful responses to questions, and engaging in discussion. So some things that you can do with it, and my students can do with it, are, you know, it can help answer questions. So you can ask it a simple math question: what's 3 + 3? And ask it, what is the average value in this particular data set? You can ask it, is the sky blue? You can basically ask it whatever you want. Can't guarantee it's going to be accurate, but you can ask it whatever you want. So it tries to provide accurate information based on what it's been trained on, and what you're asking. It can help with homework. So if you're stuck on homework, you can ask it a question, and that'll be really great for me when my kids are in elementary school and I don't know the answer. I can ask ChatGPT. It can, you know, help explain a concept too. I believe right now it knows 26 languages, so it can help you learn a new language. It can help with translation. It can help generate creative content like story ideas, song lyrics, writing prompts. Can help improve your writing, so it can give you feedback and suggestions. And then this one's a little bit lame, but it can engage in a conversation. I read somewhere it can help with your social skills, because you can engage with it like you're talking to someone, but I would probably say that it really does the opposite if you're engaging with a robot as opposed to an actual person. So I provided some examples of what ChatGPT can do, but I want to try to show you this video because I think it's a little bit more helpful. So many of you may have looked at it. For those of you that have, I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit repetitive, but for those of you that have not, what I did was I actually screen shared the prior version of ChatGPT. So that was ChatGPT 3. We're now at GPT-4. So this was in a 2-month period. So what I'm going to show you is not as good as what we have now, but it's pretty darn good. Once I start this video, so there's blocks up on how you can record it. But once I start this video, I can't pause it and I can't stop it. So if anybody wants this video, I'm happy to send it to them, but I am going to have to just play it straight through. There's no audio, so don't worry about that. But essentially what I did was I fed it some prompts. A lot of the prompts are academic specific, but nonetheless, it still kind of gets the point across on what this can do. So let me try to switch over. And like I said, once I start this, we're just going to kind of roll with the punches. So hopefully you can see the screen that says ChatGPT. This is ChatGPT 3. I have access to 4 because I paid $20 a month for it. This is what's considered the not so good version because it improved. It was released March 23rd. But this is just some examples of what ChatGPT can do. So I'm going to hit play. What's happening, the green little button is, or the red button is the prompt that I gave it. So what is ChatGPT? The green is typing. It's ChatGPT typing. The red is coming up what I wrote, explain ChatGPT to a group of university faculty members in various disciplines. And ChatGPT, would be in real time when I was recording it, is spitting out a response faster than I can talk. It's a cutting edge AI technology developed by OpenAI. It's been trained on a vast amount of data, et cetera, et cetera. So it is just taking the information it has in it and it's feeding it out in a very coherent way. I'm going to feed it my next question. How will ChatGPT change higher education? What are the pros? What are the cons? Tells me what ChatGPT is, and then it's listing the pros. And this speed is the actual speed that the computer is going. So I did this and I screen recorded it. So it talks about personalized learning, talks about accessibility, efficiency. It's cons, job loss. That's not a fun one. I actually think I'll get into this, but I think it can be really helpful for jobs. But of course, there's that fear. Bias, we're going to talk about that as well. Quality control, we don't really have it because it depends what it's been trained on. And then it provides a conclusion. It writes very well. I am a mom of 2 under 3. At the time I wrote this, my daughter was obsessed with Toy Story. Now we've moved on to a different movie, but I said, explain ChatGPT like Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story would. So it's speaking in the voice of Buzz Lightyear. It knows that character to infinity and beyond. I am ChatGPT, a language model developed. I am not a toy. I play a vital role. All right, we're still going. It's fast. I can't pause it. Then I say, respond to a discussion prompt like a graduate student would. And then I have it write, not like Buzz Lightyear, but like a graduate student. So a little bit more advanced. You can say, write an essay, essentially, that's not that good. Because sometimes students are like, it may be too good. They may be able to notice. So you can have it speak in whatever voice you want. So this is actually answering a discussion prompt from one of my classes on cross-cultural tests and measurements. I don't like it because it's doing a good job. This has forced me to go in and change a lot of what I'm doing because of how good of a job it can do, and it's really tough to detect. So right now it's writing up a discussion prompt. Hopefully not for one of my students, but it's doing it. The old model of ChatGPT pulled in fake references. The new one does a much better job getting in real references. This was in 2 months that this improved. So this is an example of how quickly technology can speed up everything. That was a whirlwind going through that. Tell a joke to lighten the mood. Sure, here's a classic one. Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the salad dressing. Okay, let's have it tell another joke. Tell us another joke, please. Of course. Here's another one. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. All right, so that was the quickest tutorial ever. I know it was really fast. But you can go in OpenAI, if you Google OpenAI ChatGPT, you can go in there and play around with it. You can do the free version without paying. If you want the more advanced version, which I paid for because I use it so much in my job because I teach about it. And it's awesome. Like it's really great. It's really helpful. But you can go ahead and try it and hopefully a little bit more of an appropriate pace. Okay, so we're gonna head back to PowerPoint. Here's just another example I put up in case my video didn't work. But this is using ChatGPT 4. So this is a newer example. This is another prompt from one of my classes, which has such been changed because it is too good. It is a factual prompt. We shouldn't use that in higher education anyway, so shame on me. Why might someone prefer mode over mean or median statistics? To describe data set's central tendency, why is median preferred? And it provides a beautiful answer, breaking it down. So this is GPT-4. Since November 2022 to March 2023, we have moved from this model of ChatGPT 3 to 4. It's a notable improvement, particularly in STEM. The old version was not great at math. It's really good in terms of visual input. I'm going to show you an example. It can condense articles into summaries, which is, I hate to say it would have been nice when I wrote my dissertation, but it can be really helpful for helping, put together things that are really advanced into pieces that are more concise. It can take PowerPoint bullets, make them into full paragraphs, and it can something interesting. You can take a screenshot of a data set and it can run the data for you. So this is all a lot, but so GPT-4, it essentially went from 175 billion parameters to 100 trillion. So that's a language number that represents the complexity. So essentially this has gotten much more complex. And where we are is essentially it's able to understand, accept, generate audio, still images, video, as well as language. So we've gone from simply a generative AI, generative text, to all of these other capabilities in just a couple months. So if you look at this graph, the blue is where we were with GPT 3.5, which was in between 3 and 4. But essentially, it's how students were performing on, or how the technology was performing on particular exams. And the red is GPT-4. So this is probably really hard to see from where you are, but the notable improvement is in everything STEM. So this is AP Calculus. The big improvements are AP Calculus, the bar exam, which isn't STEM, but it's passing the bar exam at 90%. AP Chem, the GRE, macroeconomics, AP Statistics. So this is doing very, very well, potentially passable scores on these tests. So the advancement is happening really, really fast. And so I know I come from the higher education perspective, but we're the ones that are helping train people that are then going to be in the work world. So we have to figure out how to still teach and how to help students learn the material, focus on critical thinking skills in the era where we have a technology that can do so much for us. And it's a little daunting being an educator.
Dr. Slifka, just real quick question with regards to this the exam taking. Somebody has to be feeding it questions, correct? I mean, you still have a person so when you look at the bar exam, the CPA exam, all these certification exams, somebody has to have access to that exam that is then feeding the questions. So in and of that itself, when these exams are confidential, isn't there some level of credibility with those percentages, or how are those exams getting tested, I guess, and what's the credibility of it?
I'm not sure how they're getting tested. I mean, I would assume it would be coming from somebody that has access to the exam, trying it out. So somebody that is an administrator of an AP Chem exam, trying it out. It's a good question. And it also is essentially giving the system the material then, so that it has it stored. It's a good question. I'm not exactly sure how this is all getting in there, but it is.
Thank you.
So something to look for. Yeah, something. But it like you said, it does have to be fed into the system. And like I said, I don't pretend to be a complete expert in this. This is me generating, this is me looking it up and trying to understand what's going on out there, just to understand how the system is performing. So this is something that GPT-4 can do, which I think is really neat. So we've moved on in a couple months from text to images. So this was fed as an image, and the user feeding it, what is funny about this image, describe it panel by panel. And so GPT-4 went through and was able to actually dissect the image. So panel 1, a smartphone with a VGA connector, a large blue 15-pin connector typically used for computer monitors plugged into the port. And then it explains panel 2, package for the lightning cable adapter with the VGA connector in it. A close-up of the VGA connector with a small lightning cable. And so it's going through each picture, but then it's saying the humor of the image comes from the absurdity of plugging a large outdated VGA connector into a small modern smartphone charging port. So you have to think of how much this actually understands to be able to understand that it's the wrong charger and that there's irony in it. And this is above my pay grade because I'm not in the coding. I'm just in what do we do with this in higher education, because this is wild, but it has to have so much knowledge to be able to dissect this image. And just to make it a little bit more frightening for all of you. This came from the technical report. And also, I forgot to add, which I think is really cool, when GPT-4 came out, it took a picture of a sketch mock-up of a website and asked GPT-4 to design the website. And it was, from a person that has no knowledge of website design. So it did a good job with that too. So this starts to give you an idea of where we are. But, okay. Here are some other examples of generative AI. So OpenAI has ChatGPT, GPT-4, Google has Bard and Palm, DeepMind has Gopher and Sparrow. This is just an article showing what's out there. They're rapidly developing. Everybody's competing with each other because this is where we're going. And so everybody wants that money. The other ones, well, I'm also finding like a bunch of little ones everywhere, like especially when it has to, with research, because dissertation students and whatnot, but a lot of like article summary ones, a lot of going through scholarly articles and pulling out research questions, hypotheses, main analyses and whatnot. So this is just something that is entering our world, and we, everybody's in different fields here from my understanding, and we can have answers today, and I'm not sure those answers will hold true tomorrow, but I think it's important to be investigating these technologies and figuring out where it fits in with your workplace and the capabilities and what it can do to help and potentially what it can do to hinder. But something I do want to mention, I attended a talk from the University of Central Oklahoma. They were so wonderful. Really excited to be there. And they said this, and this really stuck with me. Not like we don't have biases as humans, we do. But essentially what they said was, imagine a machine that has access to all the knowledge, but it believes everything it reads. So as humans, we're able to take all of the knowledge that we have and generate an opinion based on everything that we've absorbed. And this is where like the neuroscience background comes in, but we've absorbed everything throughout our life. And we're able to tease it apart and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense and what's biased and what's not. And this takes information, even if it's biased information, and what it does is it spits it back as truth. So if my students are entering, whatnot into the system and it's spitting back and they're reporting it to me, they're reporting it as truth. It's what AI is telling them is truth, but essentially it only knows what it's been given. So if it's given more biased information, it's going to spit back that bias. And there's been a lot of attempts for AI to eliminate bias. For example, in job interviewing, there's artificial intelligence video interviews now that can help screen out recruiter bias and rank participants in top 50% to bottom 50%. But what goes into that interview, if it's bias at all, then it's going to be bias in its decision making. So if you plug in enough parameters, it should essentially wash out the bias, but this is something that we need to keep in mind, that it's saying that it's truth, but it's only the information that it's been given. And I'm already talking too much. And this is higher education, so we're not going to spend too much time on it, but this is what you see if you Google ChatGPT and higher education. And it is scary. And, what we're trying to do is to, assure our faculty that there is a place for us in education. You don't get that human interaction from this system, and that is core to learning. But this is where we are. Alarmed universities, students using ChatGPT to cheat, AI chatbot did my homework. What do we do? And something we need to remember, and not just in higher education, but everywhere, is this is a tool. I saw a really cool newspaper article, and admittedly, I was a little young, but there was math teachers that had signs up and they were protesting the use of calculators when they came out, because they, thought students wouldn't be able to learn math anymore. And I would say that students are still learning math. We're still learning math, but calculators do help. In graduate school, when I was learning statistics, I had to do everything by hand. So an exam would be run one statistical test and it would take an entire hour to run that test. Now I have tools. I have a statistical analysis tool, which was out there, but they were cruel. No, I'm just kidding. It was good to know what goes into it. But that helps me to be, more efficient in what I do. And just a calculator helps us become more efficient. This is scary, just like anything else, though it is a tool. It doesn't replace humans now. No, it doesn't replace humans. So we have to think of this as a tool to support learning and support what we do, just like other tools of the past. This is probably not going to be as relevant here, but maybe it can be useful for you and for me and students in generating new ideas, brainstorming. Put together a 60-minute talk on ChatGPT, put together an outline. I definitely vetted that on my first talk. Preparing drafts, responding to emails. I put emails in there to double check for me, make sure there's no errors. And, there are arguments for and against this, but it also obviously can be challenged in terms of cheating. And I think this extends further than higher education, or people actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, if there's AI out there. So how I'm approaching this and how the university is, we have an AI committee, so we're working to get on top of policy and position. But just from from my perspective, what I'm doing with my faculty is the first step is familiarizing them with the tools, which kind of what we're doing here, adapting our assignments to increase the value of students doing work without AI, adopting our activities so that it incorporates AI, we can use it to our advantage, and then articulating policy, so where we stand in terms of use and not using. Again, this is probably not as relevant, but I stuck pretty close to what we did in our prior talk. But these are just some things that I brought to our faculty members just to think about, because we're educating the next generation. And we want to think about how we can best educate in this crazy, crazy world. So, I just encourage you to think about the role that this plays in your workplace, and any new hires, what tools they have now available to them and whatnot. So I hope this was helpful to you. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers about this, but hopefully, you're not scared walking away from this, but have a little bit, more of an understanding of where we are with generative AI. All right.
We'll open it up for questions then. I'm gonna turn the camera on to whomever. All right, let me just make sure that I can get. Oh, thank you. Perfect.
Does that go?
Yep, perfect. All right, we've got a question right here. Can we see? So you can see who's asking the question?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's a little far away, but I can.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it.
I'm
Hold
like
on, I
going
have to
into
get
my
image.
screen.
No, hold on. Oh, there's the camera. Okay, there we go. There we
Hi.
go. Good question. Okay,
That's okay.
I feel like I'm giving a real live talk.
there we go. Perfect, perfect. All right. If you'd introduce yourself and then we'll go from there.
Hi, Dr. Slifka. I'm Michelle Khalil. Thank you
Hi,
for
Michelle.
informing us on all of this today. It seems like it's been all over the news the last few days. And just this morning, I saw a headline on the news about I guess it's the Chinese company Alibaba
Okay.
just created or came out with their own version of this Chat GPT to challenge, I guess, the OpenAI version. And so how many different versions are there right now in terms of like the main companies? Are there several of them out there?
Yeah. So this is Microsoft, Google. So if we go back, there was another slide. I actually have a really good article that lists all of the ones that are out there, but I think I listed like 6 that are out there. Nothing has beat ChatGPT from my understanding, but everybody is competing. And these things have been in the works for years. They just haven't been released because they haven't been good. And so now everybody is working to catch up. And like they're talking about, and I don't even know what happened from yesterday to today, but like extensions as part of web browsers and whatnot. So it's kind of like built in for you. But yeah, I'm not surprised. There's competition that's everywhere. This just happens to be the best one today.
Can I follow up real quick?
Sure.
Just, my son's in high school right now and he was giving me an example of how this could be used in writing an essay. And, which I was so proud of, but, that being said, looking at it on its, right on its face, it's obviously very robotic sounding in certain parts of it, the way it came across. And so I could see how that would be a telltale sign there, but I mean, a smart person can just manipulate it however it's needed.
That's
And
exactly what you can do. I mean, I will say, whenever you get an email, if it starts with, I hope you are well, it's a pretty big tell. It's always, I hope you are well, best regards. I can tell with a lot of my students because I know their initial writing, because they're graduate students. And so I've been very close to them. But with some tailoring, it is pretty darn good.
yeah.
It does screw up. But yeah, I mean, it must be really interesting for you to think about your son in high school. I have really small children. And so I think about what are they even going to be doing in elementary school and middle school? Like, what are they going to be? I think about this every day. What are they going to be learning? Are they going to be learning to write on their own? Ever? I think the answer is yes, but yeah, it's not perfect, but it's really good.
All right, next question, Barry. This is challenging. All right.
It's
Talking to me, yeah, I can understand that. And she understands, because we find if you're more than 10 feet away, sometimes voice doesn't come through, so just make sure. Come on up here. All right, I'll try from here. Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Do you want to hear me?
I don't know how friendly are you?
I'm very.
Okay, then I want to hear you.
All right, assuming somebody is speaking and then it's being transcribed or whatever and being created from speech, is it possible for chat or whoever it may be to filter out the word like if it's being used every 6 or 8 words, and follow that closely with amazing and awful?
So from my understanding, it's not an audio input. So it would be, if you were writing a speech, you would be saying, generate the speech to me, and it's words. It's not actually like generating any sort of audio.
So it's not gonna be repetitive and the same, the words that we as humans tend to have ticks, it's gonna eliminate those.
Oh yeah, write a speech for me on ChatGPT to give to this Rotary Club today. It's going to write a speech that doesn't include like, but it's gonna do it. I teach for a living. That was, but you can't get rid of the human component, right? It'll just give me the words.
All right.
I don't know if there's I'm sure there's an audio version of it, especially for like ADA, but I don't know of that yet.
All right, Jenkins.
Yeah, I'm thinking, my name is Jenkins Grange. Thank you for speaking with us today.
Yeah, of course.
I was going back to the picture of the cell phone. I was wondering if it can do what I guess I would refer to as like a reverse lookup of a speech. You would put in a question, something like, what is the likelihood that this speech was generated by AI? And it would give you a likelihood that it was or was not generated from that.
That's a really great thought. There are the very smart college students of this world are developing those right now. There's one in particular called GPT-0, and it does just that. So you type, I can copy and paste something a student writes, put it in, and it tells me the likelihood that it's generated by AI. You have to be really careful with it though, because it's not great. And I don't want to, go off and accuse a student of it being AI generated if it's not. So you are exactly on the same page as people that are developing these and as educators. So that technology does exist. I've actually never put it in ChatGPT and said, how likely is it that this was generated by you? Which would be really interesting. Something now I'm going to do today. But there are programs. Yeah, like how likely did you generate this or a similar technology? But there are, if you look up GPT-0, that is a technology that exists that gives a percentage of how likely it is that it was developed by AI.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got time for a couple more questions. All right. That would be you.
Okay.
Camera spotlight is on you.
Ron Patrick here. Thank you for speaking to us today. I'm probably gonna sound like a master of the obvious here, but I am both incredibly excited about this when I think about the possibilities, for instance, in healthcare, on how to diagnose different diseases and how to treat different diseases and so on and so forth. And it's just truly spectacularly exciting in terms of what can potentially be done there. From another perspective, if you were to ask ChatGPT or some super powerful artificial intelligence program or bot what the best solution for climate change might be, they might say, well, we just need to eliminate humans. So my question is how do we make sure, from your perspective, how is the best way to ensure that these bots are working for the benefit of humankind and they don't kind of develop their own solutions that may or may not be in the best interest of humankind?
We shouldn't have called on him. Oh man, I don't know. That's way, I think that's the question of the day. I think that's the question of this is where we are. How do we make sure that these robots don't take over? I cannot answer that for you. I'm very honest. My husband and I, because he actually worked on those video interviews I was talking about, helping generate content that went into those years ago. So we actually started that conversation years ago, like how do we ensure that it's not taking over? And you also, the climate change thing you brought up was really interesting because there have been people that have run political things through the prompt and there has been shown to have some bias. Try not to get in that, but no, that's the $1 million question. And I'm looking at this from the perspective of how do we help students in higher education? So I wish I had the answer to that, but it's honestly something that I think about too, especially when I think about having, like I said, small kids, and how do we ensure that as humans we have control over this technology instead of the technology having control over us. So in no way did I answer your question. And I am just going to say I'm an educator. And so this is the perspective that I'm coming from. And there are people that are 10,000 times smarter than me when it comes to this. Like one of my friends at Northwestern Business School who's teaching a class on it, who could give you a better answer. I'm not sure. If you figure that out, let me know.
I think we have.
You're like, don't ever bring her back here, but yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I saw hands. Mike, all right, let me come around to you, Mike, hold on.
I believe that some of the major users of ChatGPT are not just ChatGPT, but the AI folks. You mentioned Microsoft, Google have asked for a moratorium on further development just in the last couple of months. Is that getting at what Ron was talking about, trying to make certain that, what is that about? What are they trying to do?
I think because it's advancing so fast. So that could be what he's getting at, but like, do you think that that's actually going to work? I don't know, like just trying to be realistic. I heard about this too. It's just, what scares me is that there's money involved. And so does something like that, is there going to be a halt in development because it is moving so fast, and fear, and what could the implications be? I mean, we're here. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of fear involved. And I think with all of this competition too, and all of these very smart people out there that are building off one another, like we don't know where we're going, and we're going to uncharted territory, and we're going really fast into it. But I'm not sure that that is gonna work completely.
Can't stop it.
So
Cat's out of the bag.
can I just mention she's very convincing for a bot.
Oh yeah. Well, you figured me out.
He just stole my thunder.
I guess I sound somewhat coherent.
I was gonna say,
This technology is pretty good, so I appreciate that actually.
Yeah, my question to you would be, are you a real person or a computer generated professor?
I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't want a moratorium on any of this.
Well, thank you very much. This was fascinating.
Thank you for having me. I wish I could be there in person. You all seem like a really fun group, so I appreciate you having me.
Well, we are, and we're entering a brave new world. Anyway.
We are, and I hope I didn't scare you all too much.
Oh no, somebody's got to start. Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. I want to, as a reminder, please join us next week when our speaker will be Jeff Sheffield of the North Florida Transportation Planning Organization. I know that hearing about traffic planning may not sound interesting, but I've heard Jeff speak before, and he is amazing, and it really can tell you a lot about your community and how things develop. As we end our meeting, please stand and join me in the four-way test. Charlie, yes. Yes.
Quickly, I want to say they have put on DAC TV the registration for district training and district assembly, which is going to be May 12th and 13th. And they're going to be great sessions for your training, but there's also going to be some awesome speakers for assembly. And I encourage everybody to register. It's going to be a fun time.
All right, thank you very much, B. All right, please join me in the four-way test of things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it be on the goodwill of better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Charlie.